6 years ago, my younger sister betrayed me by attacking me and trying to steal my boyfriend. Now my parents are pushing for reconciliation by inviting her to my bridal shower, despite our estrangement. I'm 28, and she's 26. After a terrible event I'll describe shortly, we haven't spoken in roughly 6 years. Growing up, my parents never curbed the intense rivalry between us. Instead, they often fueled our competition, which I now see wasn't wise. It bred deep jealousy between us. As kids, we could sometimes put our differences aside, but as we grew older, our resentment deepened. By high school, we barely interacted, and we preferred it that way. When I left for college, I only saw her during visits home, which was better than constant exposure to her hostility. Just before graduating college, I started dating my now fiancé. We'd been friends for 3 years when he finally asked me out, and I happily agreed since I admired him. After graduation, I moved in with him, as our long friendship made it feel natural. 3 months into our relationship, I brought him home for dinner to meet my parents. Coincidentally, my sister, who had just started college, was also home that weekend. Having both of us there was a recipe for trouble. At the time, my life was thriving. I had a wonderful boyfriend, a job, and my own place. My sister, however, was struggling. She was bitter about settling for her second-choice college after being rejected by her top pick. My parents later shared that she was finding it hard to make friends at school, which explained her frequent trips home. When I introduced my boyfriend to my family, I could sense my sister's displeasure. She sulked in the background. Though he knew about our strained relationship, I introduced them anyway. Instantly, she turned on her charm, which felt odd, but I brushed it off. Things quickly escalated into something unsettling. During our family conversation, my sister fixated on my boyfriend, peppering him with questions about his life. It made us both uneasy, but we stayed quiet. Then, at dinner, she crossed a line by blatantly flirting with him right in front of me. Her behavior was deliberate, meant to provoke me. Not wanting my boyfriend to see how toxic my family could be, I tried to ignore it. But I was reaching my limit. I finally snapped and told her to stop, calling her actions disgusting for throwing herself at my boyfriend. She just smirked and kept talking to him. Furious, I raised my voice, saying he was my guest and she was making him uncomfortable. She shot back, implying he could do better than me and that she was just showing him other options. Her tone enraged me, and we started hurling insults at each other. I called her a failure, saying her jealousy was pathetic since she wasn't doing as well as I was. That struck a nerve. She lunged across the table, grabbed my hair, and slapped me. Stunned, as we hadn't fought physically since middle school, I retaliated, and it turned into a vicious brawl. Our parents and my boyfriend had to separate us. By the end, we were both scratched and battered, still screaming at each other. My boyfriend pulled me away, got me into the car, and took me home, soothing me the whole way. Without him, I might have stayed consumed by anger. That fight was the end for me. I cut off all contact with my sister. Though we'd clashed before, it had never reached such a brutal level. Living separately made it easier to disown her as family. The next day, my parents called, saying they'd scolded my sister. They hoped we'd eventually reconcile, even though she wasn't ready to apologize. I told them I had no desire to fix things and wanted nothing to do with her. I also pointed out their role in our rivalry, but they brushed it aside, still urging me to mend things. My parents never acknowledged the intense rivalry between my sister and me when we were young. In fact, they often encouraged it. So they shouldn't have been surprised that we wanted nothing to do with each other. When I pointed this out, they disagreed, and it sparked an argument. A few days later, they called to apologize and admit their mistake. At the time, it felt a bit hollow, but I forgave them. Though I had already decided to cut contact with my sister, I didn't want to lose my relationship with my parents. It's been 6 years since that incident, and I haven't spoken to my sister since. I'm fine with her maintaining a normal relationship with our parents as long as they don't push me to reconcile. We rarely cross paths, but I've seen her at family events. We steer clear of each other, even during holidays, and I prefer it that way. Our family knows we don't get along, but they don't fully grasp why. They only know we had a fight, and since neither of us came out looking good, I haven't bothered to explain. For over 6 years, I kept the details private, but at my bridal shower, I finally shared the truth. My maid of honor and bridesmaids invited only close friends and family, and since we weren't sticking to the tradition of an all-female guest list, my fiancé attended too. I wanted everyone important to me there. But, inexplicably, my parents brought my estranged sister along. I was stunned when they walked in with her. To my surprise, my sister seemed equally shocked to see me. The room fell silent, and it felt like a tense standoff. After what seemed like an eternity, my parents approached and addressed both of us. They said 6 years had passed since the incident, and they believed we were now mature enough to reconcile. My sister's expression made it clear she'd been tricked into attending. Before she could speak, I told my parents they had no right to ambush me on such a special day. I calmly asked them to leave with my sister. They refused, so I tried to stay composed to avoid ruining the event. They urged me to let go of the past, acting as if the incident was trivial and moving on would be easy, which infuriated me. I recounted the entire event to jog their memory and ensure everyone present understood what happened 6 years ago. Comments and advice. I truly appreciate your support and suggestions. Here's what happened after I blocked my parents. Since my sister had been blocked for 6 years, they couldn't reach me otherwise. They decided to show up at my place, as they had no other way to contact me. With my wedding just weeks away, I'm swamped and don't have time for this. When they arrived, I'd just gotten home from work, and my fiancé and I were about to leave for a last-minute wedding dress fitting. I told them to leave, but they came at a bad time, and I knew opening the door would lead to a long, frustrating conversation. They refused to go, even after I threatened to call the police. Honestly, I didn't want to involve the police, as it felt excessive. I didn't want to be the person who calls the cops over everything. After talking with my fiancé, we decided to let them in, hear them out briefly, and then leave. We opened the door, let them in, and told them to make it quick since we had places to be. Thankfully, my parents got to the point. They said my aunt retracted the job offer because of what I said at the bridal shower. They demanded I speak to my aunt to ensure my sister got the job, claiming I was responsible. It was the same argument, and I didn't want to rehash it. I told them I'd already explained to my mother on the phone that I couldn't help. They knew I was busy with my wedding approaching, so it felt pointless to come to my home and argue again. Then my sister interrupted. She said they weren't just there about the job. I was stunned, as it was our first conversation in 6 years. She explained that she was the reason they came. She felt she needed to apologize to me. I'm still not sure how I felt in that moment, so I don't know what to tell you all. I don't trust her, so I was skeptical of her motives. I decided to be upfront with her. I asked if her apology was genuine or if she was only there because she thought I could help her get the job. I made it clear I couldn't assist, so if it was just about the job, she was wasting her time. She seemed surprised by my bluntness, but clarified that she came to apologize. And the job discussion was our parents' agenda. It was clear they hadn't coordinated this, as even my parents looked shocked when I glanced at them. My sister, however, seemed unfazed. She clarified she was only there to apologize and had no interest in the job. Over the past 6 years, she'd reflected deeply on her actions toward me, but always found excuses to avoid apologizing. After the bridal shower, though, she couldn't ignore how badly she'd treated me. My fiancé and I were still reeling, but her tone and demeanor convinced me she was sincere. She explained she'd been jealous of me since childhood, feeling forced to compete with me. She now realized she'd wasted her youth and teenage years in a pointless rivalry, regretting that we could have been close, especially since I'd tried several times to be her friend. She admitted she'd pushed me away, always seeing me as a competitor. Hearing her say this was surreal, as I'd felt the same. I'm ashamed to admit I teared up as she shared her story. Then she turned to my fiancé, apologizing for how she'd behaved during their only meeting. She said the apology was long overdue, and that her obsession with outdoing me had blinded her to the person she'd become. When she finished, she didn't wait for a reply. She simply said we didn't have to forgive her. She just needed to express it, and having done so, she'd leave us alone. She walked out, leaving just my parents, my fiancé, and me in the room. We sat in stunned silence, grappling with what had just happened, as none of us had expected it. After my parents left without speaking, my fiancé and I headed to my fitting. We didn't discuss it until we got home. About 30 minutes ago, we started talking about my sister's words. Though it took 6 years, her apology felt remarkably grown up. Her behavior showed she meant every word. My fiancé and I are considering whether to forgive her. It's too early to decide as we're still processing. We're thinking about reaching out later to offer forgiveness. I've unblocked her, but I need more time before I can tell her everything's okay. I'm genuinely glad she realized we could have been friends, even if it took years. Update 2. Hello. I forgot to mention in my last update what I planned to do about my parents. Honestly, I was so caught up with my sister's situation that it slipped my mind. Anyway, my parents haven't contacted us since their visit a few days ago. We'll keep our distance as I don't believe they're remorseful. I hold them partly responsible for how my sister and I turned out. They had chances to be better parents but failed. Despite my efforts, they've made it nearly impossible to keep them in my life. We've clashed a lot over the past 6 years, and I've always tried to forgive, but I'm done now. I can't keep excusing people who clearly disregard my feelings, or my sister's, to be honest. Ultimately, we won't stay in touch, and I doubt they'll attend my wedding. Still, my fiancé and I plan to contact them in a few days to confirm they're uninvited, just to be clear. Update 3. Hi everyone. I got married last week. It was beautiful and perfect, just as I'd dreamed, and I had an amazing time. As expected, my parents didn't show up. My spouse and I didn't even need to reach out. They emailed me saying there'd been a big misunderstanding and they wouldn't attend. They claimed my sister and I were vilifying them, and they didn't need reminders that we blamed them for our strained bond. They said, despite trying to be good parents, they now plan to step back and live their own lives, free from worrying about us since we don't value them. If that's their choice, I'm fine with it. On a happier note, a few days after my last update, I reached out to my sister. I told her I accepted her apology and invited her to my wedding. She graciously accepted and attended, making it a truly joyful day. Months ago, I would have scoffed if my parents had said my sister would attend my wedding instead of them. Yet here we are. I'm thrilled everything went smoothly and that I'm finally reconnecting with my sister. For now, that's enough. Though maybe my parents will one day reflect and apologize. Life's never been better, and my husband and I are soon off on our honeymoon. Thanks for following along. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more gripping real-life stories near you.